My next guest has a pedestrian name, but his story is anything but ordinary. At his heaviest, John Brown weighed 340 pounds and his cholesterol was off the charts. But thanks to a whole food, plant based diet, not only has he lost a significant amount of weight, but his cholesterol is in check and his life. He's got a brand new future ahead of him. So I can't wait to share his story with you. Matter of fact, I can't wait for him to share his story with you. So let's welcome John Brown to the exam room. Mr. Brown, thank you so much for being here.
Hey Chuck, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
I'm pumped that you're here too, because this bow tie is a first for the show, and this is exciting. You are a sharp dressed man, my friend.
Oh, thank you. That's one of the things I wear either a tie or a bow tie. All of last school year, actually, I wore a bow tie basically every day. But I like to switch it up now. But wanted to wear this one because I did get this one from Ghana. This is one of my keepsakes, just to remind me of that trip and what that meant in my life.
Yeah, Ghana playing such a pivotal part in your journey. But let's start years earlier and
Yeah.
talk about putting on weight.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you're not born 340 pounds. So when did the seed start to get planted for this obesity that you faced?
Yeah, I've gone over this story many times in my head and just sort of recounting. So why did we get here? And it had to be I was about 8 or 9, and it was right when I started to learn how to make food for myself. And my parents both worked, and so we had to do that a lot. And so I learned a lot how to make sandwiches and and cold cut sandwiches and just I really did over the summer between my third and fourth grade year put on a lot of weight. That was the first part of the journey. The second part came when I transferred schools and I no longer had to rely on the one styrofoam tray of food, but I could go back for seconds and thirds and fourths. And that was my fifth grade year and sixth grade year, and that was really when I saw my weight start to shoot up there. I just remember PE class and we'd weigh in PE class every couple of weeks. And in sixth grade and seventh grade, see my weight shoot up 150, 170, 200, 220. I know that by the time I was in eighth grade, I was over 250 pounds.
Mm.
So that was a story that just uncontrolled eating and really I was still active. I had actually developed asthma, and so that really constrained some of the things like conditioning, running, and things like that in my life. So I didn't really do a whole lot of that. But I played sports, I played basketball and football, and that sort of kept my weight from, I guess, going too far out of control. But really, I got up to about 240, 250 when I was in eighth grade. I regulated my weight through my athletic activity to about 225, and I kept it there through my high school and college years, and I would fluctuate up and down between about 225 and like 270.
Well, let me jump in here and ask what kind of an emotional toll was this taking on you during those childhood years, those
Oh
middle
boy.
school and high school years, even as you said, elementary school,
Yeah.
because I remember being overweight as a child and kind of always being a little bit embarrassed by that and being feared that I would be picked on or talked about behind my back. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was tough. I definitely I remember things like having to wear my dad's pants, to school, and that was tough. People didn't say a lot to my face, but I knew that there was a lot of chatter going on, behind my back, and so that was kind of hurtful. Not being able to do a lot of the same things that other kids did socially. Shirts versus skins was a super traumatic thing for me in gym. Not being able to participate in some of those activities that involve being lean and being fit. That really, yeah, that took a really big social toll for me as well. So yeah, it was tough. Fortunately for me, I had athletics. I was mildly athletic at that time, so Being the biggest guy on the football field at being 250 pounds in eighth grade was like a huge asset, like on the offensive and defensive lines. But eventually it got to a point where it was a detriment. I wasn't in athletic shape. I was just big, and so that definitely took its toll socially, as far as like dating, as far as like things like that. That was I was beyond the pale in that. I was almost like one of those out of the question until later on in my high school years.
When you were playing on the line, I know that some of the things that I mean, I would kind of look to anything to justify continuing to eat the way that I was and to justify my
Yeah.
size. Did the fact that you were playing Iron Man on the line, both sides of the ball, did you say, "Well, this is my key to the buffet to keep going"?
Well, I mean, I was already the biggest kid, and that was part of the justification. I actually wasn't in control a lot of what I ate at home. It's trying to decide between seconds and thirds at the lunch line. Now that's another thing entirely, and that was definitely encouraged on game days and things like that. So that did keep me going. It kept me. That idea of being the biggest guy on the line certainly was a justification for sure.
And as you got older, but still in high school, did you have any conversations with your doctor about what
Mm.
the long-term ramifications may be?
No, I never I don't remember having any health conversations beyond just like the thing that was ubiquitous was I always had my asthma inhaler. Whenever I had to do anything involving more than just a fast walk, I had to just blast that asthma inhaler. And sometimes over the course of in the middle of games, I would have to take it again. And that should have been a sign to me that, hey, man, maybe you're not in great shape. But I used that as a crutch for years and years and years. I never had a direct conversation with a doctor about, oh, you might want to change course. I heard the phrase "growing boy" quite a bit, but doctors never, when I was at that age, never really said, "Hey, man, you're 240 or you're 250. You may want to think about mixing in a salad or something like that." I actually didn't hear that.
And then you advance into college. Did you play sports there at all, or was high school the end of your athletic career?
High school was essentially the end of my athletic career. I did play intramurals, and I stayed in shape reasonably that way. But I mean, that was the introduction to the late night pizza and adult beverage crowd. Sometimes the adult beverage preceded the pizza, and that's really the reason for the weight fluctuation and weight gain. And so my fluctuation between 225 and 250 became a fluctuation between like 240 and 290
Mm.
because of that. Because of the poor eating habits, the late night eating, and just whatever you want to eat. And that was actually the start of my I don't know. I like to call it almost like my Olympic eating, where I would eat just large quantities of whatever it was, and that was like and part of that was part of the dealing with the emotions, the adjustment of being in college. And college was actually pretty difficult for me. I ended up dropping out after during my third year of college because of just the emotional toll that I was undergoing. And part of dealing with that emotional toll of both being in school and not being able to deal with just the rigors of school, and then being out of school and being ashamed of being out of school, is just I turned to food. I mean, food
Yeah.
was the thing that was comfort. Food never let me down, and so food didn't judge me. Food didn't tell me that I had to get up and go to class. And that was one of those times when I just really started to pack on the pounds.
Is that when kind of maybe an alarm started going off in your head a little bit and seeing that you're buying bigger and bigger pant sizes? Your
Mm,
shirt size was getting larger and larger as
yeah.
well.
Oh boy. That for sure, and the depression piece of that, and coping with the things that were going on in my life with food. There was a point where I just had to be like, okay, I have to have better eating habits here, and this was the first time that I really embraced eating less animal products came during one of these breaks in my prodigious eating cycles. One of the, I guess, would that be the up cycle or the down cycle on the diet roller coaster? I don't know, but I ran into the book Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond that really preached a lot of eating less of the animal foods and more of the plant-based foods. And I did that, and I started to lose some of the weight, and that was great. But then, after losing that weight and having people say, "You look wonderful," and then the social pressures of going back to that normal way of eating, I really abandoned those ways pretty quickly at that time. So, but the seed, I think, was planted with the plant-based approach. I knew that severely or restricting or even eliminating animal products at that point was going to be a ticket for me towards health and towards weight loss.
But I'm sure that you had tried other ways
Mm.
of losing weight previously. I mean, America is just famous for its gimmick diets
Oh
and
yeah.
yo-yo dieting. I mean, so talk about some of the more
Yeah.
interesting attempts that you've had.
Oh boy. So I actually did lose a lot of weight the summer before my second year in college. I had it was severe calorie restriction. I had a piece of toast for breakfast, maybe an egg, and then I'd have a sandwich, a cold cut sandwich, and a plum for lunch, and then I'd have a bowl of ramen for dinner, and that was like two ramen packets and a flavor packet. And so that would be like my 3 meals a day, my severe calorie restriction, and goodness, just with all the stuff that I was putting in there with all the processed meats and all the things like that. Severe calorie restriction. I remember some of the things: cabbage soup, grapefruit, Atkins. I mean, I've been down that road. I've been in the high meat consumption category as well. I've done all you name it. I've tried it in an effort to reduce that number on the scale. And if it's extreme and it causes weight to go down, I've probably done it. So everything but like the none of the dietary supplements or anything like that. Slim fast. I did do shakes when I was in high school as well to try to get the weight down. I made it through about 3 or 4 days of that, and then Friday came out, and it was Pizza Friday at our house where we'd order pizza, and so that was the end of the shake experience. It would last a good week, but
Oh yeah.
that
Oh
was
yeah.
basically it. But a lot of those, yeah, the just anything to see that number go down on the scale. That was my philosophy for a while. And then, I received my accolades, or the event comes, and then it's like, what next? What do I do next? Well, I go back to the way that I was eating
Boom.
before, and the
Yep.
weight comes back on.
Yep, yep, yep. Man, you just hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
Before we get to that pivotal moment, though, I want to ask you, how did you feel mentally as you were going on these diets and you were
Mm,
taking out the food that you had been used to, those Friday night pizzas?
I'm sure.
Maybe you went a Friday or two without the pizza
Mm,
before falling off the wagon. Did
right.
you kind of have a brain spaz, as I like to put it, where you started craving these foods that you just weren't getting at the moment?
There was a moment in the process where I could rationalize and I could actually feel, oh, I don't need those foods to get by. But what I craved was social approval. And so once I received that social approval, whether it was if it was at a party or at a bar, whatever food was nearby, I was going to have a one-man celebration with that food, because hey, people are starting to notice I'm starting to be an entity in these social settings. And so now I'm gonna, well I'm good now. I can go back to my previous philosophy, and then inevitably the weight would just come back on. So it wasn't a craving. The more than anything, I craved that social acceptance. And so
Right.
once I got that, whatever happened from that point, I was going to celebrate with food.
All right, real talk for a second. Do
Yeah.
you remember those moments in particular where you have been doing good for a number of weeks and
Mhm.
you're at that party and maybe it's that one piece of pizza or it's that one slice of cake or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be? Do you remember the conversations that you had with yourself before you actually indulged?
Oh boy. In those moments, I'll tell you, I go blank. I go blank. It's almost like that's an automatic response, that there's no angel on one shoulder, devil on another shoulder. It was almost like an involuntary response. And as I was starting to really root out the problems in my eating habits, I had to break that circuit. I had to break that connection between a positive feeling and then immediate reward with not just food but all the food. That's the thing that really derailed me. And then comes the shame cycle, right? Oh, it's not perfect, I messed up, and so now people are not going to accept me socially, and one meal becomes 2 weeks. And I'll tell you, I've put on 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And that's a demoralizing thing to see, or to feel the new pair of pants that you bought no longer fit you. And then you have to face those same people who had given you accolades because you had done so well. Now you have to face them with more extra weight, and you don't want to face them anymore. So you hide even more, and you self-medicate with food even more. And 20 pounds becomes 50 pounds, becomes 60 pounds, becomes another 80 pounds, 100 pounds, and now you're worse than what you were before. That's the cycle that I felt like I had to break, and that's finally what I broke, when after I came back from Africa. But we're talking about 2 decades of that same spiral, time after time after time.
Oh yeah, man. That 20-year roller coaster can
Yeah,
be as emotionally brutal as it is physically brutal.
right.
I mean, geez Louise, the swings that come with that. But you just mentioned the Africa trip. So let's
Yeah,
fast forward. In that 20-year span, one of the diets that you tried was that whole food, plant-based diet.
yeah.
And it was one of those cases where you did lose a significant amount of weight,
I
40
did.
pounds. And your colleagues actually began calling you the incredible shrinking man.
That's right.
Unfortunately, it didn't stick, but we're going to
Yeah.
get to that in just a second. I want to
Mhm.
flash forward now to 2019 and this trip to
Sure.
Ghana, West Africa. So let's talk about this. You're overweight,
Yeah,
probably close to your maximum weight at that point,
yeah,
340 pounds.
right.
That's a long flight for a big guy. How
Oh.
are you feeling about that?
I was excited to go to Ghana, but I was secretly hoping not to be able to go to Ghana for some reason, because I did not want to deal with the flights. I did not want to have to wedge myself in those seats for hours. And really, since I'm somebody who doesn't like to draw a lot of attention to himself, I also didn't want my size to affect my seatmates. That was another really big thing. So everything about international travel. So a couple of weeks before the trip, I spent at the gym, on the treadmill, doing some intervals, trying to get some pounds off, just so I wouldn't need a seatbelt extender. And I didn't actually need a seatbelt extender, just barely. So that was like, I considered that a small victory, but I knew, I mean, I was miserable on the, I mean, you can't avoid a long flight across the big ocean, which I didn't. So it was uncomfortable, and it really did. I knew when I landed in Accra, I knew that I didn't want to go back. First of all, I knew in 2 weeks I was going to have to do the same thing, and what was that going to look like? But then I knew once I landed at home again, I was going to have to make some serious changes in my life.
Right, right. Boarding the plane to go to Ghana. Do you remember, was there a sense of anxiety as you took that step onto the
Oh boy.
plane? Because
Oh
for
boy.
me, I remember feeling like everyone on there was looking at me
Yeah.
and just my
Yeah.
heart was boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
What was
My
that like for you?
yeah. On every leg of the flight, I was kind of in the middle, towards the end of the boarding process. And when I got to my seat, there was nobody else in the seat. And so I was hoping on all of those flights that I somehow managed to luck into having the one or two seats up beside me, so that I could just spread out. And so, as it turns out, on each of the legs, one of the last people to board was one of the people who had to wedge in beside me, and I almost wanted to be like, sorry. I almost wanted to apologize to them, but then I didn't want to again draw attention to myself. But yes, there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of anxiety actually with even getting up to go to the bathroom. I mean, that I had anxiety of, okay, am I going to be able to fit in the aisles? Am I gonna be able to get back in my seat and get comfortable now that, I've extricated myself from this position? It was very, very anxious
Mhm.
there on the flights for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Jeez Louise. I don't wish that on anybody.
No, me
And my
either.
heart goes out to everyone who's still experiencing that when they travel because it is the least fun. In your case, what, probably 14 hours or so that you'll ever spend in the air?
It was yeah, all told, we spent with layovers and things. It was a good almost a day trip. We landed finally in Accra about 23 hours after we departed. So it was, yeah, it was. I agree with you. I don't wish that on anybody. My heart goes out to anyone in that position, and yeah, it was tough.
So now you're actually in Ghana
Mhm.
and you're scouting because the following year you're supposed to go back with a group of high school, I believe it is juniors. But
Yes.
what kind of activities were happening while you were on this scouting trip?
Yeah, this trip was a medical outreach. So we were. I'm not a doctor. I'm a teacher. So I didn't do any actual medical stuff. But my job was to assist medical professionals. I was in triage. So I got to sort out the people who came from miles around to this tiny village because they knew that this health outreach was going on. And so I got to sort out the when they came in. I would write down their conditions, and when they left, I would make sure that they got the care that they came for. And so that involved sitting, and that involved being in one position, and thankfully we were out of the sun all day. But the place that we held this medical outreach was a bit of a walk from the village where we stayed, and even that in what people who are native to that area would consider to be a fairly mild climate at that time was just a. I mean, by the time I got to the medical outreach place from the village, I was already just pouring with sweat. I just sweat all the time, all day long, even when the skies were overcast. It was just, I mean, it was uncomfortable, and could have been a lot more uncomfortable. But that was my position in there. But yeah, so it was generally a medical outreach where we were helping people just with ailments that could be addressed in that.
And there was some recreational hiking that your group was doing as well, right?
Yes. So the first before the medical outreach, we did almost like a tour of Ghana. We went to the Cape Coast. We saw Elmina Castle. We hiked in the Shy Hills. And we did a couple of other. Oh, we went to Asasiya Beach. We did things like that. And this is actually the photo from my success story in Forks Over Knives, where we're hiking, and I'm already deathly afraid of heights, and here we are hiking in the Shy Hills, and we get to this thing that, I mean, this place that it literally looks like Pride Rock on the Lion King. And so here we are on this Pride Rock place, and I have to take a photo. And I had done this work on the treadmill and things like that, and I had the person take the photo, and I'm like sucking in my stomach and stuff like that. And so he shows me the photo, and I'm like, that's me. Wow, that's
Yeah.
me, huh? I was stunned. I was like, okay, so that's what I look like, and I was just gobsmacked for the rest of the time. I was like, all right, that's what I look like, and
Mm.
I knew. I mean, I had to, just the fact that I was on this hike that wasn't a super intense hike and was really struggling, and then just the way that I looked in the photo was again another just real serious call to, what are we doing here? I mean, I've got 3 kids. I've got a beautiful wife, who all want to see me not just survive until they're out of the house and living their lives, but thrive, but be able in a position to be present and be active in those moments in their lives. And so that was that photo, and that I actually still have that outfit, and I put it on, and and take photos of myself in that outfit just to show my progress of how different I look from when I was hiking in the Shy Hills on that day.
Night and day, my man, night and day. But something else that happened on that hike, I was a real pivotal moment for you. You wrote in this
Yeah,
beautiful column that you penned for Forks Over Knives about a rickety metal ladder. Tell us the story
yeah.
about that.
So the Shy Hills are a historic place. It's where during the Ashanti Wars, some of the tribesmen hid in these caves away from the British soldiers, or the women and children hid, and the old people hid while the warriors went out and fought the British soldiers. And you can get the regular old tour, which is what I was struggling through these places, and I managed to hike up, and then you could hike your way up, and you could climb up these metal stairs and get what they described as an amazing view of just the countryside around you. And I was at 340. I could already see, and with my fear of heights already, I was like, I'm gonna let somebody else go ahead and try that ladder. I can't get on that ladder. I might pull down that ladder with being 340 pounds. And I don't want to, if I get up, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get back down again. And so that was one of the things I felt like, oh man, I'm missing out on this, because if I was 100 pounds lighter, if I was 150 pounds lighter, I'd have no problem. But here I am at 340, and I'm struggling to try to keep up. And again, I'm one who doesn't like to draw attention to themselves, but I was trying to find excuses not to make it up those stairs. Most of the people in our party did manage to go up the stairs, and I had to make some sort of lame excuse and not make it about my weight. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, this is not good.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, we chuckle about it a little bit now, but at the
Yeah.
time, I mean, it
Oh boy.
just sucks.
Yeah. It was
You
a
know?
killer. It was a
Yeah.
killer. Yeah.
So you miss out on the view of a lifetime. Then you have to repeat the cycle, flying all the way back home on the
Yeah.
plane,
Yeah.
all the emotions that go with that.
Right.
But then shortly thereafter, you're in the doctor's office
Oh,
for an annual physical. What
oh
do
yeah.
you learn then?
Well, I learned that despite my best efforts, and by this time, this is the end of August now, and by this time, I had committed myself to. I was not gonna eat any more animal products, and so I had my last animal meal in the airport, in the Atlanta airport. I remember it was like a honey chicken meal, and I was like, "That's it. I'm not eating any more of this stuff." But the damage was already done, apparently, because when I had my checkup, my total cholesterol was 352. And I actually remember, and I remember this from, I was like, that's probably really bad. And it is bad. It was one of those things in the movie Forks Over Knives. They were saying, the guy who they helped to reduce his cholesterol was less than that. And so I was like, oh boy, I'm thinking, my doctor wanted so bad to put me on a statin. I mean, even before I got home from the test, the phone was ringing from the pharmacy that my prescription was already ready. He was that committed to putting me on a statin. I had to beg and plead with him that I know that I can cure this with diet. I know that I can do this well if I don't go on this statin. If I just continue with my plant-based approach, things are going to get better. He was skeptical, and he didn't think that I could get my LDL, which was, my LDL was actually 282 of that 352. So my HDL was almost in the acceptable range, but my LDL was just off the charts.
Hmm.
He didn't think that I could get it below 160 without statins, and so he was very, very skeptical there. But he said, "All right, you got 3 months. Let's see if you can do it." And so that was what started my journey in August of 2019 at that 352 number. I mean, it's just like and then all the all the other numbers that you don't really get tested very often. The really high level, this is what's the size and what's the type of particle. All those were bad too. All those were well outside of an acceptable range. And he was like, you could have an incident at any moment, and it could and this is really serious, and you need to get serious. And I assured him that I was already on the road to getting serious by the time that physical happened.
All right, I want for you to straight shoot me here, John.
Yeah.
You had tried the whole food plant-based diet previously, had some success, but
Mhm.
inevitably it wound up being another failed diet.
That's right.
What were your expectations going into it this second time?
Yeah. Well, I laid that after doing the research on the effects of excessive animal product consumption on cholesterol. I kind of laid that high cholesterol, that life risking cholesterol number at the feet of animal product consumption. So I was ready to I was ready to just walk away and just never look back. So my expectations were, all right, I'm going to find a way to eat plants for the rest of my life. And whatever happens from this point, I'm not going to, it's not going to be a self-inflicted wound that's going to cause me to fall here. I'm going to do everything I can to try to regulate this, to try to make it better. So I wasn't, there was no time limit on where this was going. There was all right, this is reality now. I've already tried it my way. My way has been terrible. My way has gotten me to a really dire health situation. And so now it's time to try another way.
Beyond your cholesterol, what were your other motivations for
Mm.
doing this? Because when it comes to success of changing or revolutionizing your health, you
Mhm.
have to have that why.
Oh
So
yeah.
what was your why?
I've got four wives at home. I've got my beautiful wife, who, she's stuck with me through everything. And we've got three beautiful kids, who are just watching every move that we make. That's so huge. Just being able to be there, for their lives, being able to model for them good behavior, to model for them just overcoming, some of the struggles. It could be food, it could be anything. To start at a place of uncertainty, to start at a place of not being proficient, and just through consistent effort, getting better and doing well, and then going from existing to surviving to thriving. That my family is a huge why. But then I also just kind of turned to, the world at large. I also got really involved with groups on social media, and especially Facebook is really great for groups involving plant-based eating, and intermittent fasting approaches and things like that. And I really have a heart for people who started where I was, who started with a feeling of, it doesn't even have to do with the number on the scale, but it has to do with a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of I cannot get out of this. And I really wanted to be able to reach back to people who were in that situation and say, hey, I want to just show you my story, and I know that you can get through this. I know and not only that, but I don't want you to be in a position that I felt like I was, where there was nobody there to help me. I want to help you. I want to be there every step of the way. So I've got family. That's a big why. And then I've got people, who are, I really do look to people who are in that same position that I was, I just want to reach back and help them and pull them up to where I am. And then some people will just take off like a rocket and go past me. And that's great. I think that's really cool,
Yeah,
because
man.
you never know, at what point in people's life and what people's development you reach them. It could be that, like me, I needed a few times. I needed to see it a few times and be like, is this really going to work forever? Like, am I going to give up cheese forever? Or is it going to be like, some people are at that stage, right? And some people are just at rock bottom, and they need that rocket boost. And so wherever those people are, I just want to help them.
And as you're starting to lose weight and your numbers begin to improve, what were the conversations like with your skeptical doctor? They must have just been floored.
Oh boy, my doctor is a wonderful human being, because unlike a lot of people I've seen, like he changed his view like that. I mean, he saw the results in me, and not just the physical results, but the blood work results. And he asked, so you're just doing a plant-based approach? Yes, I'm doing a plant-based approach. And he did ask me at one point. He was like, I want to make a study out of you. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd love to be a study, but he definitely where he went from a point of skepticism of saying that, he didn't think that I could get my LDL number below 160. And then in March of last year, right at the beginning of COVID, I had my last appointment, and my LDL was at 79, which I got it. It was basically like almost a quarter of what it was before. And he was like, "All right, you just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll be fine."
My
So
man.
he definitely, and one of the things he asked me was like, do you have a YouTube channel or something like that? Like, I don't know, maybe I should start one, but he
Maybe.
was very excited. He got very excited about it.
Oh, I can't imagine he'd be anything less than thrilled, man. Just a couple of questions left as we wrap up here. You talk about this health journey being more than just losing weight. It begins that way,
Mhm.
but there's so much more that goes into being healthy than just losing weight.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh boy, that is the biggest lesson that I think I've learned on this, which is my final journey on the. I hopped off the diet roller coaster with this thought. It's not about seeing a number on a scale, because you would do anything, or in the past I've done anything just to make that scale move. I would deprive myself of this or eat that, but I gotta. One of the things I understand is that total body wellness and lifelong health depend a lot more on those other little things that sometimes actually might cause a slight and temporary gain on the scale, right? And so when I step on the scale to these days, I just tell myself, this is a data point. This is just a data point. This is not, you're not doing what you're doing for what this says on the scale today. It's all about just the bigger picture. This is a data point. This is going to be a tiny little blip when you get to where you want to go. This is just going to be another blip. And so, yeah, I don't think of my number on the scale as a be all end all. I pursue with the way that I look at preparing my food, the way that I look at eating my food. I see that more as the end product of a bunch of tiny decisions that I make well before I step on a scale. And so that's the pursuit is no longer the number on the scale. The pursuit is, all right, my heart rate. What's my resting heart rate? Or, well, again, my cholesterol. What am I able to play around with my kids in the backyard? Or, do I want to teach my daughter how to play chess as we did this weekend? Do I want to do things with my body and my mind? Am I still sharp? Am I still, able to do those things that my kids and my wife expect their dad and their husband to do? And so that transcends any number. Because once you reach, if you shoot for a number on a scale, it's like you're Wile E. Coyote and you catch the Roadrunner. It's like, what now? What do I do now? I already reached that. But if you look at it as a journey and you're pursuing the best you doesn't correspond necessarily to a number on a scale. And so there's no other point in my life that I would have been able to say that. And I consider that to be a real big step towards lifelong health.
And final question, what did you discover about yourself personally beyond just getting healthy? What did you discover about yourself throughout this process?
Yeah. The biggest thing is I don't have to listen to that voice in my head that says, after I do receive that positive social acclamation, that I have to reward myself with food. I don't have to give in to that. And I do know that it's going to be a battle for as long as I live, because I have that in me. But I don't have to give in to that. And I can choose health over choosing that temporary satisfaction that really does come with the tip of my tongue and a few hundred taste buds. That's the thing that's being appeased. The rest of my life is being wrecked by that decision, right? And so that to me is something that in every decision point I can take that into, and that's going to lead me to even greater health as we go along this road.
John Brown, just an incredible, inspiring story. I am so happy for you and so grateful that you were able to join us here today.
Thank you, Chuck, for having me. I really appreciate being here.
If you feel like you've raised your health IQ by a couple of points, go ahead and subscribe to this channel and leave a nice comment below. And to hear the entire interview, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your shows from and subscribe to The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. And please leave a 5-star rating.